welcome back to the channel. 9th November, but in 1934 Carl Sagan was born. He was the prominent supporter of astrology. He was that one scientist who was really adoring this science. According to him, it was strongly reflecting the reality. True, it is quite opposite, and we know that he was really fighting against astrology. So on one hand, it is very auspicious to fight with the untrue and illusion and ignorance, which can hide under the superstitions or pseudoscience. But in this process, especially if we are only treating astrology like the sign explanations, like when Carl Sagan in his interview was talking about astrology, then he was just taking the newspapers and was saying, oh, Libra is this, and he's saying, he was basically showing this horoscope effect, which is the process in which we are thinking that some prediction is only for us and is quite detailed, whilst in reality is very vague and very general and of not much value. But when we read the Vedic Shastras, and when we are learning from the tradition, we are seeing how much complex, how much more detailed and advanced is the real Jyotisha, the real astrology, in comparison to what Carl Sagan was fighting with and what he thought was the complete body of astrology. So I would rather see, for example, the interpretation of his chart through some Vedic astrologer as the interview. That would be quite more interesting than this one-side critic. So let's roll the intro and analyze his chart. So we have accurate birth time 5-5. This is Taurus Lagna with 2 degrees and 23 minutes. So this is the first Navamsha and first Dashamsa. He is having the Taurus ascendant in the Rashi, which is the main chart. Navamsha in his case is changing every 10 minutes. So the next change to the Aquarius would be from 5-8. So only 3 minutes after this time, this would be Aquarius. So basically in the Navamsha, we are thinking maybe Aquarius, maybe the Capricorns. So in Vedic astrology from the beginning, we want to have at least rectified Navamsha, because the Navamsha is adding a lot of more weights to our predictions. So this becomes very interesting because astrologically, we are analyzing the chart of the biggest opponents of astrology. And we can try to analyze and pinpoint the planets which will show the narrative why he was so much against astrology. So the basic yogas would be the Kala Sarpa yoga, because he has everything between Ketu and Rahu. And this is very interesting because this is third nine, and third nine is all about authority and listening to authority, because third house is the house of Upadesha, which means listening to authority. So we see that there is some big theme in his life related to authority, or something which is like knowledge which should be taken just by its source, right? So he's very much against this. We see this Rahu is in the ninth. We see that he has very powerful demand yoga, which are giving the intelligence. So when Lagna Lord is in the third, 5 or 6, in his case he has Lagna Lord in 6th with the Pandit yoga, Sun and Mercury. And this is in human sign, because Libra is human sign. So very powerful Pandit yoga, and in this case Sun is very strong because it's joining the Venus, so Venus is going down and Sun is going up, so he is very brilliant. The position of Sun in 6th is the best position of the Sun, which is giving him the very strong intelligence. So this chart is very nicely reflecting the reality. Also when we see his work, that would be 10th from Moon, this is also the Sun, and the Sun is joining the Jupiter, which is showing the science, the teacher, professor, and with again Sun Mercury, right? If we want to complete this, then Jupiter is aspecting 10th house in the Navamsha, Jupiter is in research sign Aquarius, and in the Dashamsa Jupiter is also in a research sign in Aquarius, and we are not changing anything. Jupiter would be in the 2nd house, showing his main job as a teacher, professor in that Aquarius, right? So Aquarius is about research and science very much. So Navamsha and Dashamsa totally reflect his position and his work. Even if we take Aruda Lagna, we can take the first Aruda being in Aquarius, then it could jump to Leo, because Leo has a planet, and then it will be aspected by Jupiter. So when Jupiter is aspecting the Aruda, then it means that person is working in that academical field. So each point which is showing his career life tend lord. Even if we take the normal 10th lord is a 9th house, so this is showing someone who is working in high institutions or doing something international or in big corporations, big projects, because 9th house is reflecting the world, but also very much is showing the institutions, especially if Jupiter is nicely placed. So we see Jupiter is placed in Kendra from this placement, so it's very much supporting this Jupiterian side of this 9th house. So 10th lord is in the 9th house. Very strong yoga for such academical type of career. 10th from moon is sun with the Jupiter, so the second point for career is 10th from moon. Then we are seeing the Aruda aspected by Jupiter, then 10th from Navamsha, again Jupiter, and in the Dashamsa we analyze 2nd, 6th and 10, again we have Jupiter. So all these 5 points, which we are doing in every video when it comes to career life analysis, very strongly reflect his position as a teacher, professor or scientist. So if we would analyze this, and if we would try to take this critical approach to this technique, it's not vague, it's not general, right? It's not some kind of psychological approach. There are groups of jobs related to the planets, so there are some clusters, right? In this cluster we can specify them based on the specific yogas these planets may have with other planets, and then there are few points, and we have 5 points when this Jupiter is basically the only planet which is bringing such results. So his work has to be in that cluster of Jupiter. And this is not subjective. We cannot say that Jupiter would be, for example, medicine, or Jupiter would be assistance, or Jupiter would be art. Jupiter is more in that teacher, academical. Sometimes, yes, it can bring finances if it has a strong yoga with Mercury. But yeah, that would be it. Also, we see that in 3 dashas are showing that he has died in the Sagittarius sign, and normally the rule is that the 12th house has to be activated. So for Capricorn, Navamsha, the 12th house would be Sagittarius, right? Then he was also married in the Aries dasha 2 times. He has 3 marriages. We see how this Venus is going down, right? The sun is going up, so very nice results when it comes to finances and brilliance, but Venus is going down, so there's 3 marriages, and these 2 marriages, they were in Aries dasha, and we see that Aries is aspecting 7th house and the 7th lord, and it's 12th house, so exactly that. And divorce was in Sagittarius dasha, and Sagittarius is 8th house, and exactly 8th house is showing divorce, so the chart is working perfectly. We know that he had also the Cancer, and he died of tuberculosis, so the Cancer is Rahu Jupiter affliction, and the tuberculosis would be the Rahu Mars. So we see that 12th lord in Navamsha, which is reflecting his demise, is Jupiter in Rahu sign. This is showing the Cancer, and the Rahu is the dispositor and aspecting that Jupiter from Martial sign. This Rahu and Mars, especially in the 4th house, like Parashara is teaching, Rahu, Mars in the 4th. So we have Rahu in the 4th in Martial sign. There is even that Parivartana between Venus and Mars, so this is making that Mars relationship even stronger, so this is showing this tuberculosis. But the direct was the Cancer, because the 12th lord is Jupiter in the Rahu sign. So again, very direct. There is nothing vague, there is nothing psychological, there is no horoscope effect which we are here manipulating to get this result. This is quite accurate reflection of what's going on, and quite narrow interpretation of what this yoga can show in the chart. So we have this problematic of this neutral epistemology, as the scientist presents themselves as the very neutral, very transparent, but from astrological perspective, this neutral approach is very hard to acquire, because we are under the influence of the grahas. The graha means the eclipse, so these planets in our charts, they show some kind of narrative. So Carl Sagan or other scientists, they are probably thinking that they want to help, enlighten, present the truth and the universality of the knowledge, but through the chart we can easily see the various narratives and the position from which this knowledge is coming up. So it's not really neutral. It's very hard to be neutral when we have these roots of knowledge in the form of these planetary placements of our chart. So what would show this fight against astrology? Definitely we have this moon in the 7th house, which shows that promotion, popularization of the science, and also he was in some later stage of his life also seen as celebrity, right? So this moon in 7th house is bringing that fame, and also because it's Atma Karaka, I think that this is the connection to the public. He wants somehow to be with the public, he wants to popularize something, and he wants to build some kind of connection to people, which is very nice. He has this Dimant Yoga, which is also very interesting and very nice, bringing that brilliance to people. But is there some kind of aversion maybe, which is not neutral, to the concept of some Jupiter or Sun, right? The god or authority or something like that. So we see that Jupiter is 8th lord in the 6th. So the Sun and Jupiter, right? So the Sun, which is the light, the god, the Jupiter is also this kind of principles. They are in the houses of enemy in the 6th house. Then we have the yoga, which are showing that one is against the authority or guru. We need to see 3rd and 9th, and then Rahu or Saturn, if they are there, then it's basically showing this kinds of independent nature. One is not listening, one is against, right? So we have Rahu and Saturn in 9th house, very easy. And in the Navamsha, we have Saturn also in the 9th house. We could also see D24, but in fact, in the academical surrounding, he could be very good follower of the tradition, right? But in the Navamsha, we see that the general approach, we have that Saturn in the 9th house. So he is very much against. We also see that if Aruda will jump to Leo, I think it jumps to Leo because then the Ketu, which is showing the whole Moksha Marga, this approach of spirituality, is in 12 from Aruda. So he is rejecting the whole concept of anything metaphysical, right? So Aruda, Lagna and Leo, Ketu is in 12 from Aruda. We have Jupiter and Sun in the 9th house, and we have Rahu and Saturn in 9th in Rashi, and Saturn is in 9th house in the Navamsha. So that would be my understanding why he was so much against astrology or any concept of metaphysics. As a bonus point, we see that he has also the Venus in Marana Karakastana, but it's an own sign, right? So through the Bala, it's very strong. So Shiva is basically here overcoming this status of Marana Karakastana. Also the Rahu could be Marana Karakastana in 9th. So in fact, the Saturn is going down, but Saturn is again in own sign. So again, we have this Bala, this power, planet in own sign, have the strength, planet in exaltation, they have the purity. So here we see that Saturn, which is very strong, and the Karaka of this is Jupiter. So again, the 9th house with Saturn, so opposing the authority, has the Karaka in the 6th house. The Karaka, the whole concept of guiding, the teaching, and this authority of the priest, we could say, right? Taking as an archetype, is in the 6th house of enmity. So he's fighting against that, and he's fighting with the help of his brilliance, right? Lagna Lord in 6th, very intellectual person. Mercury Sun, the Pandit, so he is very intellectual, scientist-oriented person, very independent, and the Jupiter is there. So with that brilliance, with that intellect, he's fighting against this principle of Jupiter. So that would complete my short analysis and approach to his anti-Jupiterian stance of Carl Sagan. Okay guys, so that's gonna be it from me. I hope you find this interesting and informative. If you do, please don't forget to click the thumbs up. You're helping me with this algorithm to make it more visible on this platform. Subscribe if you'd like to get notification about similar videos in the future, and see you in the next one.